Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. I am Azra Hassan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
25 clauses of the Port City Bill are inconsistent with the Constitution. 9 clauses require a referendum to be passed. Supreme Court determination tabled in Parliament. Government agrees to amendments proposed by the Supreme Court. Says the bill will be passed with a simple majority. State Minister Cabral calculates economic damage since travel restrictions were imposed. Opposition demands for details on Attorney General's claims of grand conspiracy behind the April 21st attacks.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa delivered a special address in Parliament today in line with the 12th year commemoration of Sri Lanka's victory in the 3-decade-long war.
මේ ජයග්‍රහණය අපට ලබා දෙන්නේ දෙන්න දහස් ගණන් ජීවිත දන් දුන්නා. ඇස්මා ලේ මස් ලේ දන් දුන්නා. අත්පා හිමි කරගත්තා.
Several thousand people lost their lives to achieve this victory. They lost their limbs in battle as well. Honorable Speaker, all those who went to war at that time did not walk into the battle to commit a massacre. Former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca, former Navy Commander Vasantha Karannagoda and former Air Force Commander Roshan Gunatilaka did not send out their troops to commit a massacre. They fought against a ruthless group that used children in the north and their innocent parents as human shields. Our objective was to fight against this group while protecting those who were being used as shields. That was a daunting task, but they fulfilled it. It was ordinary children who turned out to be war heroes. Today the country is battling the pandemic. Just as certain forces acted against the country and the people during the war, some groups are opposing, entrusting the army with the duty of battling the pandemic. Remember that these are groups that fought against the world's most ruthless terrorist and set an example. We have appointed Triforce's personnel who are capable of facing the world's worst pandemic. Today I am proud of that. Therefore, we withdrew from the co-sponsorship of the resolution in Geneva as it betrayed our country. Soldiers sacrificed their lives to grant you freedom and ensure peace in the country. Therefore, regardless of any challenges, we will not betray our victory that costed several thousand lives. What is important to us is this country.
ජයග්‍රහණය අපි පාවා දෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපිට වටින්නේ මේ රටයි. එදා මා කිව්වා වගේම අදටත් අපට පළමුව මව්බිම දෙවනුව මව්බිම දෙවනුව
The Supreme Court determination on the constitutionality of the Port City Economic Commission Bill was tabled in Parliament today. According to the recommendation, certain provisions require a 2/3 majority in Parliament to be passed into law, while some provisions require to be passed by a 2/3 majority and a referendum.
The bill makes provisions relating to the issue or grant of registration of businesses in the port city. The bill includes provisions that made it mandatory for the regulatory authorities to grant approval to the requests of the Commission seeking regulatory approval for the establishment of businesses in the port city. The Supreme Court stated that this is inconsistent with Article 12(1) of the Constitution, as it takes away the discretion of regulatory authorities. The determination states that this inconsistency could be remedied by ensuring that the regulatory authorities retain their discretion within the port city. The bill creates a parallel structure of regulation where both the Commission and the existing regulatory authorities exercise concurrent powers. The Supreme Court determined that the regulatory structure set out in the bill lacks clarity and provides for the exercise of arbitrary powers by the Commission and thus is inconsistent with Article 12(1) of the Constitution. The Supreme Court pointed out that this inconsistency would cease if amendments are made to ensure that the Commission, in exercising regulatory powers vested in other regulatory authorities, should always obtain the approval of the respective regulatory authority. The bill attempted to grant powers to the Commission to prepare and enforce all community rules, including criminal sanctions and development control regulations in the port city. However, the Supreme Court determined that the said clauses are inconsistent with Article 76 read with Article 3 and 4 of the Constitution, as legislative powers should be exercised by Parliament alone. The Supreme Court in their determination held that the Commission cannot draft development control regulations and rules that impose criminal sanctions. The determination states that the bill as it stands now does not provide for any guidelines in the granting of exemptions or incentives, and adds that neither the individual exemptions nor incentives go before Parliament for approval. This grants the Commission unfettered discretion to grant exemptions to businesses and, according to the determination, is inconsistent with the Constitution. The Supreme Court stated that there must be transparent guidelines based on which the exemptions are granted, and these guidelines themselves must have the approval of Parliament. The bill attempted to grant powers to the Commission to impose and collect taxes. The Supreme Court held that this is inconsistent with Article 148 of the Constitution because taxes cannot be levied without the consensus of Parliament. However, the Supreme Court added that the inconsistency can be cured by limiting this power to the imposition and collection of rates. Court held that cumulatively, the provisions in the bill that require a person to obtain prior approval of the Commission in order to visit the port city and requiring a levy to be paid for goods and services upon leaving the port city are inconsistent with Article 14(1)(h) of the Constitution. Court took the view that it restricts the movement of people in Sri Lanka. The Supreme Court proposed a number of amendments to cure this inconsistency. Clause 37 permitted an authorized person to engage in businesses in partnership with a citizen outside the area of the port city. The Supreme Court determined that in such event, exemptions granted cannot apply to businesses carried on the outside of the port city. The Supreme Court proposed that the inconsistency can be cured by limiting the operation of the exemptions granted to businesses in the port city alone. Further, the determination notes that the Attorney General had agreed to include amendments to ensure that a majority of the commissioners in the Port City Economic Commission are of Sri Lankan nationality. Under the original formulation, all commissioners in the Port City Economic Commission could have been foreigners. The Supreme Court has issued its determination stating that 25 clauses of the bill are inconsistent with the Constitution and that 16 clauses need to be passed in Parliament with a two-thirds majority, while 9 clauses require a public referendum. 9 clauses in this bill infringe on the people's sovereignty. The Supreme Court determination has proved that the government had attempted to engage in a shameful act of creating laws by violating the Constitution instead of preparing them in line with the constitutional framework. The Supreme Court has only considered whether the bill is in line with the Constitution or not. It does not have the authority to determine whether the bill is favorable for the country or not. On the political and economic front, the government is attempting to pass the Port City Bill in Parliament in the coming days at a time when the society has been gripped in fear, while constricting room for any form of discussion on this. This is not a matter in which Mahinda or the Rajapaksa family is giving away their property to another entity through the power of attorney. They are trying to give away a public asset that belongs to the present and future generations of this country. These are our national resources. It concerns matters surrounding politics and the future of our country as well. The people have not given the Rajapaksas the mandate to give this away using the power of attorney. By making minor amendments, the government will try to pass this bill. Based on the manner in which the government is conducting itself, we have a reasonable suspicion to believe that they have assured the Chinese that this bill will be passed during a certain time period.
From the beginning, we were of the stance that the members of this commission must be appointed ex officio. On that point, the Supreme Court has accepted the views of the government that a majority of the members of the commission will be Sri Lankan. All the regulatory bodies, including the central bank, has now been given the power to exercise their powers in the port city. We consider that as a great victory. The MPs in Parliament appointed by the people will have the power to decide on who is coming here, who will be given tax concessions, and how will this area be regulated. Any company registered at the port city was initially given the opportunity to partner up with a Sri Lankan and conduct businesses anywhere in Sri Lanka. But when these companies get all the concessions and operate outside the port city, how can local businesses compete with them? The government that promised to protect local businesses tried to make arbitrary decisions like this and destroy local businesses through this bill. The Supreme Court accepted the arguments put forward by us and said that this cannot be allowed. The court said that, for example, if a person registered in the port city conducts businesses in Kurunagala, shall be subject to all other laws applicable to an ordinary business in Kurunagala. The Supreme Court has held that 26 clauses of the bill violate the Constitution. This makes it clear that this government is acting in a dictatorial fashion and that they have completely disregarded the Constitution. Now the government has to agree with the arguments that we presented and amend the bill accordingly.
මේ අධිකරණ තීන්දුව මේක දැක්කට පස්සේ අපිට මතු පිටින් දැක්කට පස්සේ සතුටු හිතුණාට
Although on the surface we are happy about this special determination, there is a serious issue here. The issue here is that the determination stating that there are clauses inconsistent with the Constitution has been given in contrary to the logical arguments raised in court. A proposal has been made to replace a certain word. Changing words won't result in a political change. The third and fourth sections of the Supreme Court determination has suggested the word for to be substituted with the word to facilitate. What kind of damage will this have on the economy? We cited that the Colombo port city will become a money laundering hub for black money racketeers through which all the black money in Asia will circulate. There is a serious question when it comes to deciding whether it is unconstitutional or not. There are many loopholes in this, including in which a simple change in a word can avoid a referendum and a simple majority in parliament. This bill must be abolished. The debate scheduled for today and tomorrow must be cancelled.
මේක දැන් ටින්කරින් කරන්න බෑ මේ පනත අහෝසි කළ යුතුයි හෙට සහ අනිද්දා යොදා තිබෙන විවාදය අවලංගු කළ යුතුයි.
Mr. Presiding Member, there is some misinformation which is circulating throughout the country regarding the effect of the Supreme Court determination that was announced to this August Assembly by the Speaker this morning. It is being said that the Supreme Court in its determination has declared that a two-thirds majority and a referendum is required in order to pass this bill. That is totally, entirely incorrect, Mr. Presiding Member. The government, through the Department of the Attorney General, submitted to the Supreme Court a series of amendments. The court has accepted those amendments and that is clearly referred to in the determination that was read out this morning. On behalf of the government, I stated yesterday that the government is accepting in its entirety the amendments which have been suggested by the Supreme Court. So during the committee stage on Thursday afternoon, the government will move those amendments. They will be included in the bill, and with those amendments, the bill can be passed in this parliament with a simple majority. That is the effect of the determination of the Supreme Court. There is no doubt whatsoever. There is no need for a two-thirds majority. There is no need for a referendum. The bill can be passed with a simple majority.
The opposition attempted to raise questions on the attempts to pass the Port City Bill in Parliament today.
එදා අපි පක්ෂ නායක රැස්වීමේදී ඉල්ලීමක් කෙරුවා මේ වගේ වැදගත් පනතක් මේ වගේ වසංගතයක් තියෙන වෙලාවක ඉදිරිපත් කිරීම ඉතාමත් අසෝබඩ ක්‍රියාවක් කියලා මොකද අර රෝමේ ගිනි ගන්නකොට නීරෝ වීණා වාදනය කරනවා වගේ
හරි ඒක ඔබතුමාගේ මතේ කරුණාකර මේ කරදර කරන්න එපා සභාව කඩාකප්පල් කරන්නමයි උත්සාහ කරන්නේ.
We heard that in the past few days there were COVID-19 cases being reported from the Parliament premises. The office of the General Secretary was closed. Your office was closed. Officers of the field offices were closed. At a time of a pandemic, is it appropriate to take up this bill? The people condemned these moves.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa raised questions today on the steps taken by the government to combat the COVID-19 pandemic.
මෙරටින් වාර්තා වන කොවිඩ් රෝගීන් සංඛ්‍යාව ඉහළ යාම හමුවේ.
As COVID-19 infections continue to rise, health authorities seem to be losing control over the situation. Therefore, the government needs to pay attention to this and ensure that timely action is taken. Won't the virus continue to spread among the community if the gravity of the situation is not emphasized to the public as a result of failing to provide accurate figures on the number of infections and deaths? Who will bear the responsibility for this? Will the government accept that there is a delay in deriving these figures as the tests have exceeded the capacity of laboratories? If that is the case, will the government take swift measures to improve facilities at labs? All individuals who receive the first dose of the jab, including the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured in India under the brand name Covishield, or the jabs purchased from the Serum Institute, should receive the second jab in May. How many individuals have received the second dose of the vaccine? How will the second dose be administered among the remaining individuals? When will it happen? Have the required vaccines been imported to the country? What is the percentage of the population that would be vaccinated? Will you be able to reveal the plan, including the time frame, to this House? Have arrangements been made to import the required vaccines? How much funds would be required for this? How will the government allocate these funds? Has the private sector been allowed to import vaccines? Some private donors had agreed to import vaccines worth between 20 and 15 million rupees, but the government did not approve that. A few days after that, a minister came out and said that they would not mind the private sector importing the jabs.
දින කිහිපයකට පෙර ඇමතිවරයක් සඳහන් කරනවා දැන් පෞද්ගලික අංශයේ ගෙන්නවට කමක් නැහැ කියලා.
27 යටතේ මේ රජයට ඒවලා තියෙන මේකේ කිසිම කියන කිසි දෙයක් නැහැ මෙතුමා මේ දැන් කියන දේවල්. මෙතුමා කතාවක් කරන්නේ. මෙතුමාට කොවිඩ් පිස්සුව දදලා තියෙන්නේ. කොවිඩ් වෛරසය නෙමෙයි.
එතුමා හරි මට රටේ ජනතාවගේ ජීවිත ආරක්ෂා කිරීමේ පිස්සුව තියෙනවා. ඒක මම පිළිගන්නවා.
27 යටතේ ලිඛිතව ඉදිරිපත් කරපු විතරයි කියවන්න පුළුවන්. එතුමා මේ පැකරිල් ගහන කියපු එක් පුද්ගලයානේ.
මුව ආවරණ ගැන කියපු දේවල් රට වහන එක ගැන කියපු දේවල්.
What I said about masks, imposing restrictions and consuming Placanil have all proven to be true. The government is ridiculing the lives of the people. The government has issued a statement on the Itukama COVID-19 fund. Will they take steps to inform this House on how funds would be spent through the fund? Will they clarify the expenses that have been mentioned, such as advocacy activities and the purchasing of ambulances?
කිරීමේ වැඩසටහන් සඳහා සහ ගිලන් රට මිලදී ගැනීම සඳහා වැය වූ මුදල් වියදම් කර ඇති ආකාරය පිළිබඳව පැහැදිලි කරන්නේද?
මට පොඩි සාධාරණ සැකයක් තියෙනවා. මේ කොවිඩ් මර්ධන ක්‍රියාවලියට මම
I have a reasonable suspicion as to whether he has misused 27(2) of the standing orders. Given the time that I have to sacrifice at a time when I am providing leadership to the COVID-19 prevention program. Therefore, at a time when there is a national pandemic, you must engage directly in fieldwork and not waste my time here. Therefore, I received this question yesterday. I have loads of work to do and I am unable to respond to these questions.
ඊයේ ලබා දුන්න ලොකු ප්‍රශ්න ගොඩක් මට විශාල වැඩ කොටසක් තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මට අද උත්තර දීමට හැකියාවක් නැහැ කතානායකතුමනි.
මොකද්ද මේ විහිළුව? ඔබතුමාම දන්නවා. දවසින් දවස ආසාදිතින් ප්‍රමාණය වැඩි වෙනවා. මරණ ප්‍රමාණය වැඩි වෙනවා. ඒව පිළිබඳව අපිට ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න බැරිද? ඒක තහනම්ද?
ටීවී එක බලන්න කියන්න මුලින්ම ගිහිල්ලා.
හරි හරි.
රාගල රූපවාහිනිය බලන්න පුරුදු කරන්න කරු කතානායකතුමනි.
හරි ඕකතරේ.
එහෙම නැත්නම් මෙයාට ගහන්න වැක්සින් 6ක් විතර.
කොවිඩ් ගැන උත්තර දෙන්න බෑ. හැබැයි දින දෙකක් විවාද කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ පෝට් සිටි බිල් එක.
හරි හරි. ඒක අදාළ නැහැ.
ඇමතිවරයෙක්ව අපහසුතාවයට පත් කරන්න.
There is a tradition that has been followed since J.R. Jayawardena's era and even Dudley Senanayaka's era as Prime Minister. If a parliamentarian or a minister feels that questions are being raised to make them uncomfortable, then they can avoid that question. Mrs. Bandaranaike, Ranjan Wijeratne and Premadasa did that. They have declared that they won't answer the question. They have told that to me. Therefore, if someone says that they cannot answer the question by following the tradition, then take that as an answer. Don't ask questions by harassing them.
ඒ නිසා තමුන්නාන්සලා එහෙම සිරිහර කරන්න ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න එපා.
මේ වෙලාවේ අපට අනපනත් අවශ්‍ය වෙලා තිබෙන්නේ රෝගියා සුවපත් කරන රෝගියා ආරක්ෂා අනපනත් අපට අවශ්‍යයි තියෙන්නේ. ඔය පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ
At this time what we need are laws that will assist in the treatment and the protection of infected individuals. The 225 people are being held hostage in Parliament who have been elected by the people must formulate a mechanism to protect the people. As far as I know, more than 60% of healthcare workers are currently unwell. They are unable to receive adequate treatment. Regardless of the heavy concerns that we reiterated, the officials don't seem to comprehend the situation. We don't have an intention to topple the government, but they must understand that we are the ones with the crown. During a certain period, we will have to crown a different prince. We are respectfully requesting the President to look into this matter, as increasing the number of departments and appointing several ministers will not do the job. Mahinda Rajapaksa must discuss this matter with his brother on how to carry out the administration of the country and how to protect the people. That is because he understands the people's requirements. There is nothing to be ashamed of this. Why are the rulers not paying attention to this? They paid attention to all matters during the election period. Why can't they do it now? We can wake up a person who is asleep, But we cannot wake up a person who is faking to be asleep. This leaves the people helpless. If this continues, I do not know how far our health system will be able to handle it.
සෞඛ්‍ය නම් මං හිතනවා මේ තාලෙට ගියොත් තව කොච්චර දවසක් මේ සෞඛ්‍යයයිද කියලා නම් අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ.
State Minister Ajit Niwat Cabral has said that the government had to incur a loss of 60 billion as a result of imposing travel restrictions in the last few days. He made this statement in Parliament while commenting on expenses incurred by the government for COVID-19 prevention activities.
2020 අප්‍රේල් සහ මැයි මාස සඳහා රුපියල් 5000ක දීමනාවක් දුන්නා.
5,000 rupee concessionary packs were provided in April and May, and a sum of 56 billion rupees was spent on this. 29 billion rupees was spent on quarantine processes and health infrastructures. 7.03 billion rupees was spent on providing relief to families affected by the COVID-19 second wave in October and November last year. 2.8 billion rupees was allocated to provide 10,000 rupee worth relief packs to families in quarantine. To offer support to state entities that were facing losses due to COVID-19, we spent 311 million. 102 million was spent on other facilities allocated by divisional and district secretaries. 88 million was spent on purchasing agricultural produce. All these expenses amount to 96.05 billion rupees. We have already spent 41.9 billion rupees in 2021 as well. So far, the government has spent 138 billion rupees directly for COVID-19.
දැනටමත් වැය කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ රුපියල් කෝටි 13800ක් මේ රජය කොවිඩ් වෙනුවෙන් දැනටමත් වැය කරලා තිබෙනවා.
A senior health ministry official said that the medical supplies division of the ministry had been requested to import oxygen cylinders swiftly to the country. Accordingly, discussions are being held with several countries, including Singapore, to import 1,000 oxygen cylinders. The financial allocation for the exercise is 300 million rupees. Meanwhile, attention has been drawn towards importing medical equipment, including 2,000 oxygen concentrator machines, to the country as well. These machines will be used in the treatment of COVID-19 infected individuals who have not developed a lung infection. The Health Ministry noted that the cost of an oxygen concentrator machine has been fixed at approximately 200,000 rupees. Accordingly, the ministry added that 2,000 oxygen concentrator machines will be imported in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, the Health Ministry has observed that 17% of the COVID-19 infected individuals receiving treatment in hospitals require oxygen. The Cabinet has decided to simplify the existing procurement process to procure essential equipment to combat the COVID-19 pandemic without delay. According to Cabinet memorandum presented by the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa in his capacity as the Minister of Finance, the procurement system will be revised and new guidelines will be issued to enable the expeditious procurement of vaccines, medical equipment and other medical necessities and essential items.
Will Sri Lanka receive COVID-19 jabs on time?
State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulations of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasamana has said that Sri Lanka will receive 185,000 doses of the Russian Sputnik COVID-19 vaccine next Tuesday. He noted that Russia has agreed to provide a consignment of the vaccine to Sri Lanka on a monthly basis starting from next month. The State Minister added that China has also agreed to supply 13 million doses of the Sinopharm vaccine this year. Sri Lanka has been unable to administer the second dose for approximately 600,000 individuals who received the AstraZeneca vaccine for the first dose.
We are monitoring the progress displayed by countries such as the United States, Canada and the member states of the European Union. We have informed the Sri Lankan envoys in those countries to request for Sri Lanka to be given priority when those nations are supplying vaccines.
Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has said that 20 million COVID-19 vaccines will be exported in another 6 weeks. He added that the vaccine will be provided as a part of the global leadership displayed by the US in battling the pandemic. Accordingly, the number of vaccines exported by the US stands at 80 million. The US President had pointed out that while much attention has been drawn towards China and Russia in influencing the world's vaccines, the US would export vaccines to other states without expecting favors from such nations.
What is the progress of treating COVID-19 patients? 19,000 beds will be used by us. We have prepared 21,000 beds. If there are infected individuals who cannot be provided adequate protection at home, then we will have to move them to a hospital or treatment facilities. We must receive the support for that. Don't assume that we have stopped the treatment of infected individuals at hospitals or at intermediate care centres.
ගත කිරීම නවත්තලා හෝ පුද්ගලයන් අතරමැති මධ්‍යස්ථානවලට යෑම නැවැත්තුවාය කියලා.
Meanwhile, the College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka has called on authorities to revisit the strategies that are being implemented to combat COVID-19 in the country. In a statement, the medical body insisted that the country needs real-time data for dynamic strategies based on the pandemic situation. The statement emphasized that restrictions on inbound travellers to the country should be revisited and that new quarantine measures at ports of entries are made more stringent to prevent the entry of new strains.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa paid a visit to the Intermediate COVID Treatment Centre in Sidhuwa today. 1,200 patients can receive treatment at the treatment centre, which consists of 3 wards. The treatment centre was built within 10 days by the Sri Lanka Army and the Seva Vanitha unit of the Army. Patients who cannot practically be treated in houses but does not show serious symptoms are to be admitted to the treatment centre.
In more local news, patients who visited the Dick Oyer Base Hospital in Hatton for treatment were severely inconvenienced today after they were informed to return back next week.
The Hatton Dick Oyer Base Hospital was overcrowded with patients today. This was after clinics were held for heart-related ailments while the Bogawantalav area was under isolation. The individuals suffering from heart-related ailments visited the hospital for treatment today. The patients had arrived at the hospital amidst numerous difficulties as public transportation was not in operation. However, they had been sent back eventually without being able to obtain treatment.
Several views were expressed in and out of Parliament today regarding the revelations made to Newsfirst by Attorney General Dakpula de Oliveira regarding the April 21st attacks.
The Attorney General has clearly said that the details provided by the police is insufficient in order to punish the wrongdoers through the court on the April 21st attacks. The minister said that the mastermind is now for Maulavi. The Attorney General is saying that there is no such decision yet. Why are there contradicting statements? This is an important question and not just an ordinary one. The Attorney General is saying that there is a conspiracy behind this. That is why we are raising these questions. If a clarification over the statement made by the Attorney General is required, I will issue a statement from my ministry tomorrow. The Attorney General has made statements citing that this is a massive conspiracy carried out by a group. He said that the ones who are arrested had only a minor part to play in this and that there is a huge conspiracy behind this. When will this be investigated? Like the Cardinal said, we will pay close attention to this. We will not stop this effort even during the pandemic.
It was announced yesterday that a project is to take place at the Colombo Port City under 2 phases in the coming months. Dr. Harsha De Silva of the Samiki Jana Balawegaya expressed views about this particular project on last night's Face the Nation program.
Who do you think invested the initial 100 million or 100 billion into the Colombo International Finance Centre, into this strategic development project?
As a member of parliament, I am embarrassed that parliament has released something like that. This is absolute nonsense. It is $1 billion investment, not $100 billion investment. I will take it up with the Secretary General tomorrow. The original investor was going to be the project company, Czech Port City. Now subsequently it was changed. It is Czech Port City and Browns International Limited. So these are the 2 companies that have come together to invest $1 billion over a period of time. So this is not coming tomorrow, right? It will take, I think, 8 years for this investment to come.
This project will be exempted from a number of acts or taxes, corporate income tax, dividend tax, VAT and so on. Where will the money come in to Sri Lanka? How will Sri Lanka benefit through this project? Can you apprise me?
Yes, I mean that's a very good question. This particular zone, I didn't want to call it the port city. If I had my way, I would have called it the knowledge city, right? Because what we are trying to bring here is technology intensive services. I always say this, to develop this country, we have to move from simple product and services producing country to complex products and services producing country. So therefore we need to bring in the know-how. We have to bring it in. So that is why we try to sign the Singapore Agreement. This government, which was in opposition then, my God, created such a hue and cry. You are trying to sign the Singapore Agreement. These people are saying, no, any foreigner can come and work. There is no limit. So this is an absolute contradiction here, because they don't know what they stand for. One day they are saying, don't open up, right? Close up everything. Next day they are saying, let's open up, bring everybody in. Sri Lanka will benefit if the success can be then taken in policy terms to the rest of the country.
The Japanese government has decided to drop an amendment to its immigration law amidst massive backlash over the death of a Sri Lankan woman in custody recently.
The Japanese government had attempted to put forth a bill amending the immigration law amid concerns that it could worsen conditions for asylum seekers in Japan. Critics said that the revision of the law would allow the deportation procedure to be halted only twice while applying for refugee status, in violation of the UN's non-refoulement policy. They said the amendment would result in forcible deportation of those applying for refugee status in Japan for the third time. The bill had come under heavy criticism amidst heavy condemnation against the government after a Sri Lankan woman had died at the Nagoya detention center for overstaying her visa. The funeral of 33-year-old Wishma Sandamali, who had died on the 6th of March, was held last Sunday by her family more than 2 months after her death. Foreign media reported that she had died despite receiving medical attention from doctors after initially complaining of a stomachache and other symptoms.
A raid was carried out on a large-scale sand racket near the Sita Bridge in Muttur. The raid was carried out based on information gathered by the Air Force, the Police Special Task Force and the Air Force Quick Response Team consisting of intelligence units. The unit, which is a concept of Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana, was established with the aim of preventing the destruction of natural resources and illegal trade. 13 tractors, 34 boats and 37 motorcycles along with 56 suspects were arrested by the police. We leave it tonight with the footage of the raid. For the Newsfirst team, I am Azra San with our sign language interpreter Brian D. Cruz joining us via Zoom. Take care and good night.